I was wondering about our yesterdays and digging through the rubble. And to say the least, somebody went to a hell of a lot of trouble to make sure that when we looked things up, we wouldn't fare too well. And we would come up with totally unreliable pictures of ourselves. But I've compiled what few facts I could, such as they are, to see if we could find out a little bit of something. And this is what I got so far.
But the rest of Africa here is totally unknown.
Oh.
But the rest of Africa here is totally unknown.
Oh.
But the rest of Africa here is totally unknown.
Oh.
See, that's totally unknown, and we will see a little bit more later. So these areas, as they were Roman provinces, they were quite well known, but the rest, no. Now, this was in 1535.
Okay.
As I've mentioned to you, Vasco da Gama, at the end of the 15th century, had already gone around Africa, so they knew the coast of Africa to the south and a bit in the east. They knew the coast. But at that time, they relied very much on Ptolemy still. However, yeah?
One quick question.
Yeah.
Concerning like the little ridges and so that you see at the edges of the map and so, how would they figure that out? Would they figure it out by sailing and...
Well,
because that would be a lot of sailing.
at the time of Ptolemy, you see, these maps were constructed according to the instructions of Ptolemy of the 2nd century. So they are historical maps, if you like. They do not correspond to the reality in 1535.
Okay.
We come to that. Ptolemy was very much honored by geographers and people who made maps because he was supposed to be an authority. However, people had progressively become aware of Africa looking differently. And the same cartographer added in the atlas, added to these old maps, the first visions of modern maps. Here is Africa, and here is West Africa, with Guinea round down to the Gulf of Guinea here, which had been explored by the Portuguese sailors. The sailors were in the coast, but inland it was empty and they knew nothing, or very, very little.
So these are all Portuguese names, if you look at them.
Yeah.
They're all Portuguese.
Yeah.
Now let's go to the ancient history website that I got up. Let's find out what means. Let's find out. Go ahead.
Definition. Was a city in the region of Sumer.
Sumer is the ancient name for Iraq. Write that down. Sumer, because you'll see that in history books when you come across it. Sumer is the ancient name for Iraq. Mesopotamia also. Go ahead.
Southern Mesopotamia, in what is modern-day Iraq.
There we go.
According to biblical tradition, the city is named after the man who founded the first settlement there, though this has been disputed.
But remember also when Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac, he said, "Go to my own country, to my own relatives," in Genesis 24. And where did the servant go? He didn't go all the way back to Mesopotamia. What he did was he went to Haran, which is located 24 miles just south of the northern city of Ur. And unfortunately, that site is covered with a city of about 2 million people today. But I would suggest that the city of Ur, the northern city of Ur, is a good place to start.
The city's other biblical link is to the patriarch Abraham, who left Ur to settle in the land of Canaan. This claim has also been contested by scholars who believe that Abraham's home was further north in Mesopotamia, in a place called Ura.
My question is Ur of the Chaldeans, where Abraham was born, where Remi Ilona DNA was found to be in the gene pool, is it inside sub-Saharan Africa? The Igbo DNA, my own DNA particularly, the Igbo DNA, has been found to be in the gene pool, starting from Ur of the Chaldeans to Israel.
Okay.
It is there.
And we noticed through DNA that the vast majority of the people who they took from Africa during the transatlantic slave trade, all of us, it's quote unquote coincidence, but they all happen to be E1B1A on their paternal side in terms of DNA, their Y DNA.
Abraham was born in Ur of the Chaldeans. Ur of the Chaldeans. Uru means place or city of the Chaldeans. I am from Uru Okwe in Ebema Ozobolo. Scattered around the Igbo land today, you will find not less than 100 Uru.
Urartu comes from Urashtu, the Assyrian word for the kingdom, and signifies high place, possibly referring to either the mountainous region or the culture's common practice of building fortifications on rock promontories. To the Babylonians they were Uruatri, and to the Hebrews the kingdom was known as Ararat. The Urartians called themselves Baina and their state Bainili, or land of the Nairi,
near the city of Haran, and that the writers of the biblical narrative in the book of Genesis confused the two.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Somebody remind me what I was about to say. I was about to go somewhere. I'm about to go somewhere heavy. What was I saying, family? Oh, yeah, Abraham and Melchizedek. All right, let's go to the scripture. I want to show you something. Remember, none of the events that was written in the book of Genesis was written contemporary to the events when they occurred.
The name Abram, reformulated as Abraham, is Aramean, and therefore at home in Aram Naharaim, the upper reaches of the Euphrates and Tigris where the cities mentioned above were located. This was Abraham country, the land of his birth and his kindred, to which he sent his majordomo to find a wife for his son. Both Isaac and Jacob married Aramean cousins from the same region, and in the liturgy for the presentation of the first fruits Jacob is even described as the Aramean about to perish. This raises a problem for Ur of the Chaldees, in southern Iraq, as the starting point of the journey, since none of the Terahite family has any connection with southern Mesopotamia. If therefore we are to make sense of the narrative at this point, we must suppose that the appositional phrase, in Ur of the Chaldees, and from Ur of the Chaldees, have been inserted into the account of the journey. If this is so, the intent may have been to associate Abraham with the Judean diaspora settled in that part of Mesopotamia in the early 6th century BCE, a supposition which fits well with Aram. Naharaim is the region in which the deportees from Samaria were settled by the Assyrians after the fall of their city in 722 BCE. These locations may have served to emphasize concern for the reunion of Israel and Judah, north and south, often expressed in later prophetic texts. There is also a problem with the destination of the first stage of the journey from Ur. We are told that the final destination was, from the outset, the land of Canaan. To reach that destination they would have had to travel north following the course of the Euphrates, but not as far north as Haran, the site of which is now in southeast Turkey, about 40 kilometers from Urfa.
None of the events that was written in the book of Genesis was written contemporary to the events when they occurred.
There is considerable disagreement among biblical scholars as to how to evaluate the narratives of Genesis and Duke 26:5. The dating of the patriarchal narratives typically range from the late monarchy to the post-exilic period.
If you attribute Moshe as the author of Genesis, he lived way after. If you attribute the writing of the Torah, like some in academia do, during the times where the royal court was established in Israel, about 1000 BCE, from 1000 BCE to about 750 BCE, okay, but the point still remains. It was not written contemporary to the events that occurred.
For example, Van Setters has argued that the nomadic lifestyle of the biblical patriarchal traditions fits better and more accurately reflects the time of the late Neo-Assyrian or even the time of the Neo-Babylonian period, that is, the 7th and 6th centuries BCE.
So, if the people that are writing the text are the priesthood, and they were skilled and astute scribes.
On the other hand, Lipinski argues that the biblical patriarchal traditions in the book of Genesis reflect the time corresponding with the 10th century BCE, stating, "The historical circumstances of that time form thus, as it seems, the background of the biblical episodes referring to the relations between the biblical patriarchs and the Arameans."
So you have to go back to the statute, laws, and commandments and check this out. I tell you this all the time. If you really want to know the statute, laws, and commandments played out, you have to understand it to read what happened with Abraham all the way into the end of Bereshit.
There was Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran dies because Haran was the third son. So we now have Lot now taking the place of Haran as far as just royal lineage is concerned. And these women here, Sarah, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, Milcah, and we have Iscah, who they say is Sarah. These three women were royal women.
My king, if I happen to be a mother with an only child, and that child is a king, he has stayed for so long without a child, without a son that will sit on his throne after he has gone. I tell you, I will be worried and will even do worse things that she has done.
Nana, I know you. You cannot do something like that. You have a good heart.
No. Not when I am fighting to preserve the legacy of my husband, to ensure that the lineage continues to rule as a king's.
Sarah is a very, very important woman. She's oftentimes overlooked, and she is my favorite woman out of every woman that I've come across in Scripture. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
My husband, you need wine. I will be right back.
Many of the biblical characters, namely Abraham, have his origin in Mesopotamia. But if you don't know the African origin of Mesopotamia, you might question Abraham's color. You might question Abraham's lineage. But if you know during the time of Abraham, he lived during what we call the Neo-Sumerian Renaissance, or simply referred to as the Sumerian Renaissance.
The ancient Egyptians came there, and there was a few of them left, and to some degree intermixed with them, and saying the ancient Egyptians were black.
The Sumerians ultimately, in pre-dynastic Egyptian times, moved out of the Nile Valley into southern Iraq with a group of other folks.
Which I want to tell you, when you speak of the Sumerians, you are in part speaking of the ancient peoples of Cush. The term Cush in biblical Hebrew translates as dark, charred, or black.
My husband, please, I beg you, consider what I am telling you. Please.
This is the introduction now to Cain, the life of Sarah. We need to know who was Sarah. We need to know who was Sarah.
I have thought about it. And I will not go against my will.
Please, Your Highness, please, marry another wife. Maybe that will solve our problems.
Stop this! Stop it!
I won't!
Sarah, my mother, all right? She changed the model or business even the construct of a situation to justify the latter means.
I'm sorry. Your Highness, I know you love me, but this is beyond what we share as husband and wife. Yes. Remember, someone must sit on this throne when you must have gone. And that must be of your blood. Or another will sit on this throne when you are gone. Please.
My question is who of the Chaldeans where Abraham was born, where Remi Elon DNA was found to be in the gene pool, is it inside sub-Saharan Africa?
Even if you look at near like Iran, a culture in the Iron Age, the Oaxis BMAC culture that they try to use. And if you read articles about the BMAC culture, it said that they had different ethnic groups. So they found one E1B1A, one E1B1B. If you want to base it off haplogroups, they said there was different ethnic groups in that region. Again, it wasn't exclusively E anything. The rest of the markers was highly J, G, R, also L. It was all types of markers.
Why don't you go in and prepare something special for me? Maybe it is the will of the gods. Who am I to question the gods?
Your Highness, maybe it's the will of the gods for another to give you an heir to this throne. Yes. Please, my husband, don't refuse to accept this just because you love me.
Now, who is Sarah? All right, who is Sarah? For me, Sarah, my mother, was the most innovative woman in all scripture. I use the word innovative, all right? Why do I say innovative?
You know you are the king, and you can marry as many wives as you want, and...
Oh, it's enough. Enough. The gods will bless me with male children, and you will bear them for me.
Sumerians were physically similar to the African Negro types in ancient Egypt. They had dolichocephalic skulls, prognathism, dark skins. The war panel of the Standard of Ur dated to the British Museum, 2600 BC. This is the Sumerian leader known as Gudea, 2100 BC. This is the Egyptian Ka-Eper, 2500 BC. The people in these regions had what they refer to as a Euro-African Negroid type.
Someone mentioned that there's a possible substrate of Proto-Bantu in Mesopotamia, for Sumerian, but you're not the first person or that person to suggest that there was a relationship between Bantu and Sumerian.
Black Sumer, the African origins of civilization. Hell, you talking about Sumerians ain't black.
Nah. Dear. Nah. You worry too much. Why do you worry so much over things we have no control over?
What a lot of people don't know is that Abraham lived in what's called the Neo-Sumerian Renaissance, also known as the Third Dynasty of Ur.
Ancient Sumer was a grouping of city-states, and that is roughly in what we now call southern Iraq.
That's why we call Abraham a Sumerian, because if anybody that studies that region knows, the people who conquered the Sumerians are Akkadians.
So what I proposed a couple years ago was that the Gutians were the ones that drove Abraham and his family to north of Mesopotamia before they descended into Israel.
Some tribes of Nairi had possibly Armenian names. There was a Nairi tribe called Uiram, which could be a version of the Armenian name Aram rendered in the cuneiform writing system, where vowels as we know them are interchangeable. For that same reason, this tribe could be connected to the Urumu people, who the Assyrians placed near modern Mush in Turkey and in the mountains of Sassoon. Another Nairi tribe was called Duisuni.
But let me show you something. Here's another one. Here's a mtDNA J1C E1B1A. Where is that at? All right. Let's go look at that. Let's go look at that. Turkestan. You can see what's going on there. What year is that? Right? Bronze Age. You can see Iran. Right? See what's going on there? There it is. 2000, or even let's go all the way over. Let's get a little understanding. So let me make sure this is the right one, because usually I set this at the bottom so I don't. Let me make sure I put this at the bottom so I'm not showing the wrong one. All right, so you see that E1B1A there?
During the reign of Shalmaneser I, king of the universe, my father had rebelled and withheld tribute, had united itself under one command. I drave to the god Assuran of the great gods, my lords, and marched up to Mount Kashiri, as, with a bridle I controlled the land of the Subaru, the land Alzu, and their allied kings. I conquered the great cult center or the land Puru Limzu. I burnt them, the inhabitants alive, and the remnants of their army I took as captives. I conquered 4 strong capitals Edli Tesab, king of the land Alzu, and 6 rebel cities of the land Amadanu, captives, and property I carried off from them, and brought to my city, Assur. Ebli Tesub king of the land Alzu took fright in the face of my majesty and, taking his courtiers and his sons, he abandoned his entire and land went secretly to the very border of Nairi, border of Nairi, border of Nairi, border of Nairi, to an unknown land, to an unknown land, to an unknown land. Taking his courtiers and his sons, he abandoned his entire and land went secretly to the very border of Nairi, to an unknown land, to called Ninurta, king of the universe, strong king, king of Assyria, king of kings, lord of lords, ruler of rulers, prince, lord of all, conqueror of the rebellious, those who do not submit to him and who are hostile to Assur, feeder of the princes of the Kutu as far as the land Meru, disperser of the forces of the land of the Subaru and the remote lands Nairi, and the remote lands Nairi, and the remote lands Nairi.
The children of Israel shall possess the land of the Canaanites even unto Zerah, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the city of the south.
Where is that at?
Sepharad?
Yeah.
It's a place unknown.
Yes, it is known. That's Hebrew for Spain.
Okay, well, you're about to be debunked right now, my boy. Let's go here.
And a matter of fact, the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 15, when you go down to 22, he said, I am hindered for coming to you to Spain. So he was going to visit.
The word Sephardic Jew is from this Hebrew word Sepharad. Watch this. I want to see if you're a Hebrew scholar or not. Hold on, watch this, watch this. Sepharad. Look at this, look at this. Hold on, look. A region of Assyria. You said Spain. You're a liar. Let's keep going. Look, biblical usage. A place where Israelites were exiled, site unknown. You're done, my boy. Have a good night. Now, were we in Spain? Yes. Can we go to that verse to prove that that means Spain? No. That's being intellectually irresponsible.
By now, the powerful Cushites had attracted the attention of the warlike Assyrians who were threatening King Hezekiah of Judah. He appealed to Shabaka for help, and he succeeded in warding them off. Cush was established as an African superpower. When Shabaka died in 702 BC, he was succeeded by his son Shabitku, who again managed to see off the Assyrians. When Shabitku died in 690 BC, the kingdom passed peacefully to his brother Taharka.
It was
bag of Israelites that migrated down here. They moved, majority moved from North Africa, Morocco, passed through Mali, northern Nigeria, the entire length of Nigeria, then Igbo.
King of Assyria, King of kings, Lord of lords, ruler of rulers, prince, Lord of all, conqueror of the rebellious, those who do not submit to him and who are hostile to the god Assur, defeater of the princes of the Kutu as far as the land Meru, disperser of the forces of the land of the Sicarii and the remote lands Nairi. The one who took over the rule of all the lands Nairi and subdued the 40 kings, their commanders, at his feet. Who did battle with 40 kings of the lands and Nairi, brought about the defeat of their army, fastened bronze clasps to the necks of those same kings of the lands Nairi, and brought them into the presence of the god Assur. There is a further point of interest in the assemblage of the military events. The tribute of the Nairi land is recorded after the exploits in the west. This runs against the standard arrangement of a summary inscription, which should organize the military events in an east-west fashion. Therefore, the Tel al-Rimastel cannot be considered a typical summary inscription. It is, however, unclear whether the placement of the subjugation of Nairi in the military narrative signifies that Adad Nairi III's success in this region occurred after the war against Damascus, or if it was appended to the account of the western campaigns to bolster the image of Adad Nairi as a conqueror. If the latter is correct, then this would indicate that the practice of geographical organization of the military narrative was still relevant to the steles composition. In this way, the campaigns most relevant to the region were presented chronologically, with other notable victories appended at the end of the account. The fourth phase continues the narration of the western campaigns, and introduces the northern conflicts against Nairi. The fourth phase continues the narration of the western campaigns, and introduces the northern conflicts against Nairi. It should also be noted that despite further reducing the account of the war against the North Syrian alliance, the region conquered changes. The Assyrian forces defeated the lands of Amuru and Hatti. The addition of Amuru and later in the inscription, Nairi to the statement of territorial conquest reflects Adad Nairi's later military success. Tadmor, 1973, page 144, has suggested that Nairi is included in this part of the inscription to fill up space resulting from a scribal miscalculation.
In light of the topic, because you're connecting now the DNA of Abraham, Sumer, and West Africa, and she does so in her work.
And after these things, the word of Yahuwah came unto Abram. His name is Abram at the time, not Abraham, which is going to be very important. In a vision saying, fear not, Abraham, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Sovereign, O Lord Yahuwah, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? He doesn't have any children. And the steward of my house is Eliezer of Damascus.
Hey, so Abram, like, okay, in chapter 12, you know, like a little while ago, you said you was gonna bless me and my seed, and you said it like multiple times already, but I ain't got no damn children yet, Lord. What's up? You know what I'm saying? What's going on?
Is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abraham said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, fourth verse, and behold, the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, this should not be thine heir. That word heir is going to be extremely, extremely important.
Read.
And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed.
I ain't got no seed, Father. Read.
And lo, one born in mine house is mine heir.
Right. All I got is this person of another nation, which is my servant that was born in my house. Is he gonna be my heir? Is this person of another nation gonna inherit my promise, my blessing, Lord, that you keep telling me about?
heirship, the heir, all of the personal belongings, the inheritance goes to the heir. But the heir must be according to the seed. Genealogy is extremely important. You just don't give your inheritance to anybody.
Read.
And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir.
He not going to inherit nothing that got to do with you, Abraham, because he not your seed. But Christianity, but all the nations, that can't be the understanding. God just told him, no, dude ain't going to be your heir. Dude is not going to be blessed through you. But read on.
But he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir.
Right, that which come out of your loins, your seed, is going to be your heir. That's who's going to inherit your blessing.
Verse 2, it says, and Sarai said to Abram, see, Yahuwah has kept me from bearing children. Please go into my female servant. It might be that I'm built her, or that I am built up by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So now who's he taking orders from? Come on now. They're supposed to both be taking orders from the same person. That wasn't the order that they received. Who deviated from the orders first? He was the one talking about, I don't know if Yahuwah's going to be with me in Egypt. Let's start telling stories. Now she's like, okay, we telling stories. Well, let's get creative. My womb's closed up. I don't know that I believe the word of Yahuwah either. Maybe we have to do it this way. Here's a way that seems right to me. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her female servant, the Mitzrite, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. After Abram had dwelt in 10 years in the land of Canaan. So now he's made a covenant. And now there's going to be fruit bear from it.
You go and get like it. I know you like it. My wife, come let's go inside. Let's take it easy, okay? Easy. Take it easy, okay?
You know, you were very nice.
Hey, it's okay. Hey, it's okay. Take it easy. Okay.
I think you should be giving me more wine.
If you want some more, I'll give you. Uche, you're here. Come, let's go in.
But I'm afraid.
Why? You don't need to be scared. Go inside.
Are you sure this will work?
Uche, I've been following your circle. And right now, you are ovulating. I'm sure by the help of the gods that everything will work out to our own good. Come, let's go in, okay? Let's go in.
This is the introduction now to Cain, the life of Sarah. We need to know who was Sarah. We need to know who was Sarah. And I guarantee you this, because the baby thinkers, all right, can only point out, okay, that Sarah had a handmaiden, all right, and Abraham went into Hagar. That's all they can see. But there's a whole lot more that was going on in that picture there. A whole lot. All right, so that's not what we're not even talking about that. We're going to take this a step further, all right?
Seed of Abraham being saved. The seed of Abraham being saved. The men carry the seed. This is how you know you are who your father is.
You know what? That's the best answer you gave. No problem. I'll read for you what's his seed. Genesis 21:12. Now, this is right after Hagar is born. Ishmael is born. And you know what? Ishmael would be Abraham's seed. He's definitely a son of Abraham.
Madam, just sick.
You're pregnant.
Just sick. I'm not pregnant.
No. I've been watching you for some days. I know the signs. You're pregnant. Hey! You're pregnant. You're pregnant. Chukwabiama. Gods of our land. One is for her to conceive. Another is to bear a male child for me. Hey, gods of our land. Chukwu Okike. Chukwu Abiama. If you do this for me, I will forever remain grateful. Uche, you are pregnant. Go. You're pregnant, my daughter.